Hello, welcome back to the Pink Floyd journey, my continuing series of videos where I'll be reviewing the albums of Pink Floyd. I did the first one back in July, so it's been quite a few months since I've done one, and we're only on the second album, but I plan to continue to review all the Pink Floyd albums. I'm in a real Pink Floyd mood now. It is November 1st, and the new album is 10 days away, The Endless River, so I'm really excited, in a real mood to review these albums, and so I'll be continuing to do that. I won't get to all of them before The Endless River comes out, but I will be giving kind of a first thoughts video on The Endless River when it does come out, and then throughout the next couple of months I'll probably do the rest of the albums. And in December I'm going back home for a few weeks, so I'll probably dig out my Pink Floyd vinyls, show you them, maybe review some DVDs that I have, a Blu-ray I also have, and I might end it all with a review of the Dark Side of the Moon Immersion box set, which I still haven't reviewed, and I own it. So we're here to talk today about Saucerful of Secrets, the second studio album from Pink Floyd. And it was released on the 29th of June 1968 in the UK, and a month later on the 27th of July 1968 in the US. It was recorded from August 1967 until May 1968 at EMI Studios in London, and there was additional recording at D Lane Lee Studios as well. And the length of the album is 39 minutes 25 seconds, and the producer is Norman Smith. Now, like I did with the first video, just to give you a bit of perspective of what was going on in the band at the time of the album was coming out. Again, it was released in 1968, and at this point, when the album was released, Syd Barrett, the frontman of the band, was no longer in Pink Floyd. And so the era of Syd Barrett was burned very fast and bright, and then was extinguished rather quickly, because he was taking drugs, he was taking a lot of acid at the time, and Darren Locke left a very insightful comment on the last Pink Floyd review I did, telling me that people would kind of spike his drinks, or to that effect, that people were kind of pushing it onto him as well, which is kind of tragic really. But the way I like to kind of, well, not like to, but the way that I do think of it in my head as to what happened to Syd Barrett, because there's never been an official kind of, this is what happened, this is what went wrong, this is the official diagnosis. But I'm going to go from the closest source I can, which is Richard Wright, who has said in 2 different interviews that I've seen that a doctor told him that there's nothing they can do for Syd. He's literally destroyed his brain, and people were even saying that it was over this one weekend that he came back and he just wasn't the same. Something was just not there. No one was home, and I think that's really tragic. And he was kind of shunning the fame of Pink Floyd. They were becoming very popular. They went on to Top of the Pops, but Syd Barrett didn't want to do it. He said, John Lennon doesn't have to do Top of the Pops, and Roger Waters was like, what the fuck are you talking about? This is what we want. This is the fame and everything. And Syd Barrett kind of wasn't really down with that. For whatever reason. They went to the US, they did their first tour. It went terrible because Barrett was very unresponsive. He wouldn't play on stage, and it's again, lots of stories about that. So they came back and were working on this new album, Saucerful of Secrets, around Christmas of 1967. They got in touch with a friend of theirs, a few of them, called David Gilmour, and they asked him to step in as a second lead guitarist for when Syd wasn't really, doing anything. They go to a gig, and I think they played a few shows in January of 1968, correct me if I'm wrong, where they were a 5-piece band, and there's those famous pictures, or at least they're famous in my head, of kind of a black and white, photo shoot of all 5 of them, and there's a great shot with, David Gilmour, Nick Mason, Rick Wright, Roger Waters, and then in the middle, behind them all, in the background, just looking, with his hair down, is Syd Barrett in the background, and it's a haunting image, but it is kind of beautiful in the same way. It kind of sums up the whole thing, and if I can find it, I'll put it up on screen. But they started working on this new album, A Saucerful of Secrets, and Syd only appears on technically only one Syd Barrett song is on the album. The rest of the band had to kind of put together, and David Gilmour got involved as well. And in the beginning of 1968, Syd was ejected from the band, very unceremoniously, and not in a very adult way either. They were driving to a show, and they said, "Should we not pick Syd up tonight? Or shall we pick Syd up tonight? No, let's not bother." And they didn't pick him up one night, and that was it. And they've said, in recent interviews, recent-ish, like Nick Mason, that perhaps they could have dealt with it a little better, and they kind of felt some guilt, I think, later on in later years, and maybe that came out a bit in the Wish You Were Here album. But you know, there was nothing really that could be done with Syd. He was slowly slipping away, you know, with the acid that he was taking and indulging in and all this kind of stuff. Very sad, very tragic, really, because he did seem like such a great guy and such a creative person, you know, which is very evident with you know, Piper at the Gates of Dawn album, but it just wasn't happening. He recorded one song, which I'll talk about, is at the very end of the album, which is very fitting. So the Saucerful of Secrets is the only album that features all 5 of the kind of most popular members of the band. There are a few others in the early days, but you know, really when you think of Pink Floyd, you think Syd Barrett, Roger Waters, David Gilmour, Nick Mason and Richard Wright. And so for anyone who is watching this and is not too familiar with the band, I'll just quickly go through it. I know that most people watching this know everything, know all the history, but you know, I'm just doing this, you know, in case there's someone who's watching this who doesn't know too much about them. So David Gilmour came in. He replaced Syd Barrett with the lead vocals and lead guitar. Roger Waters, bass player, and would later kind of take over songwriting duties when Syd Barrett left, because he was the main songwriter of the band. Then we have Richard Wright on the keyboards and also vocals, and Nick Mason on the drums. So Barrett's gone, and we've got Gilmour in the lead role, and a very hard spot to kind of fill the shoes of Syd Barrett. And instead of, you know, trying to emulate, you know, what they had with Syd, they kind of took it in a different direction. But this is kind of the difficult second album where it's still pieces of Syd clinging onto it, and one of the songs does feature all 5. Is the only one song ever that features all 5 of them, you know, recorded some bits, you know, which is Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun. There's the full band as it would be once Syd left, but also there's a few of Syd guitar parts in there apparently. So Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun is a pretty special song in that regard. So yeah, there's loads of stuff. I mean, there's other songs that were recorded that could have gone on the album, like Vegetable Man, Scream Thy Last Scream from Syd Barrett. And there's lots of information. I'm not going to go too in depth. I mean, you can read all this stuff for yourself. And I'd love to go in depth, but I don't want to take up too much time because I can really get carried away with Pink Floyd. So let's just go straight to the songs. You know, the first track is Let There Be More Light, which was written by Roger Waters, and this is kind of more of like a spacey rock kind of thing, with Richard Wright on the lead vocals, and Roger Waters is doing some as well. And what I like is the way that Richard Wright comes in singing, and I love Richard Wright's voice. He's not like an amazing singer, but there's something so delicate about his voice that really appeals to me. And he comes in and he starts singing on Let There Be More Light, and then the tone shifts, and then suddenly there's a much more powerful vocal coming out, and it's David Gilmour, you know, blazing a trail on his first Pink Floyd song on the you know, the first album, and you know, singing these lyrics, these very imaginative lyrics. And Let There Be More Light, there's good parts to it. I don't completely love it, but you know, it's it's kind of neither here nor there for me. I do enjoy it, but I don't love it. That's 5 minutes 38 seconds. I don't know if I did that for the last one, but I'll just do it for this one now. Then the second track we have Remember a Day, which is a Richard Wright song, and he does the lead vocals also. And after his passing in 2008, David Gilmour actually played this song on Jules Holland, which was quite touching. I like this song. It definitely goes back to the Syd Barrett style of the childlike kind of, oh, I just noticed I'm reflecting that on the wall. The Syd Barrett kind of dream-like kind of stuff, but I really do like it, you know, Remember a Day When You Were Young, that kind of thing. And it kind of, instead of what Syd Barrett's songs were doing where they were just like saying very childish things, this one kind of says, you know, remember when you were a child, and it kind of focuses on that. I quite like it. 4 minutes 33 seconds. Then number 3, the third track, Set the Controls for the Heart of the Song, another Roger Waters song, and he does the lead vocals also. And what I thought might be a little fun, and this might be a complete disaster, but hey, I love Pink Floyd, and why not spice things up a bit? I'm going to give you a very, very crude snippet of me playing a little bit of this song right now, so let's check it out. Little by little the night turns around, counting the leaves which tremble at dawn. Lotuses lean on each other in yearning. Under the eaves the swallow is resting. controls for the heart of the sun. Over the mountain, watching the watcher, breaking the darkness, waking the grapevine. 1 inch of love is 1 inch of shadow. Love is the shadow that ripens the wine. Set the controls for the heart of the sun. Set the controls for the heart of the sun. I apologise. That's just you know, it's a very simple thing to play, but I'm completely like tone deaf. I'm not good at keeping in time. I'm not good at really playing a guitar all that well, but I like to noodle around every now and again, but there you go. Just a little fun thing. The track Set the Controls for the Heart of the Sun is 5 minutes 28 seconds, very spacey, very slow, and it's very, I like it, it's very chill, and it, again, just there's something about it that just flows, and again, this is the track that has all 5 members of the band, all 5, you know, those guys. I don't know what I'm trying to say, because there wasn't really a 5-piece version of the band, but featuring all 5 of them around, you know, the '68 period, I guess. Yeah, I quite like it. It's also featured on the Ummagumma album, and it has been played live and extended and all this kind of thing. But this one I really do like a lot. It's again, very chill. Number 4, we have Corporal Clegg, another Roger Waters song, and this is, I think, the only song, except for maybe One of These Days, where Nick Mason actually appears on the vocals, along with Richard Wright and David Gilmour. 4 minutes long, 13 seconds, and this is kind of a precursor to things like The Wall, The Final Cut, you know, where Roger Waters is writing about the war, you know, and his father passed away in the war, and so Roger always had a fascination with it, and would definitely go on to explore that in later years, but this is kind of his first thing. Corporal Clegg is this character who has been in the war and has, you know, been through some atrocities and stuff, and it's a very bouncy song, but it kind of taps into something a bit more serious, which I kind of like. It kind of just the lyrics are very good, very sharp, and you know, Mrs. Clegg, you must be proud of him, Mrs. Clegg, another drop of gin, you know, that kind of hints that, you know, he may be seen as this sort of hero in some kind of fantasy land, but really, after the harsh reality of it, you know, it's not. Oh, my battery's getting low. It's not a fun thing, you know. I just love the way that it's explored in a very bouncy way, but there's some kind of serious undertones to it, I think. And I really love Nick Mason's vocals in this as well. He won it in the war in 1944. Yeah, he should have done a few more vocal tracks. And oh, but I didn't like there's this kind of section with kazoos, which I don't like. It just hurts my ears. So I do like Corporal Clegg, but I just wish there wouldn't be as much of the kind of kazoo stuff, because that kind of just annoys me. Didn't really get on with that part at all. We move on to side 2 of the album. The 6th track is A Saucerful of Secrets, the titular track, 11 minutes 57 seconds, instrumental track, and it has wordless vocals from Gilmour and Richard Wright that kind of harmonise over it, and it's it's kind of split into 4 parts: Something Else, Syncopated Pandemonium, Storm Signal, and Celestial Voices. But as it appeared on this first Saucerful of Secrets album, it is just Saucerful of Secrets, and you know, it's written by all 4 members of the band, and it's, I don't know, there's some good parts to it that I enjoy. I think I quite like the live in Pompeii version, but this one sounds just noisy to me. There isn't much about it that I really enjoy, to be honest. The second side of this album, I don't really get along with that much. Maybe I have to. I've tried to listen to it a few times, Saucerful of Secrets, but it's very long. There's a lot of stuff going on. It's quite mental, and again, just at times it just felt like noise to me. There's some nice parts to it, but overall, I wasn't in love with it, I should say. And then number 6 on the album is Seesaw. This one's written by Richard Wright and sung by Richard Wright, and it's 4 minutes 36 seconds. This one I don't like. It's very, again, dreamy, Syd Barrett reminiscent, and a bit too derivative. There isn't really much new here, and apparently he was very critical of his earlier songwriting around this period. And I like Remember a Day, but I don't really like Seesaw. And then finally, the 7th and final track on the album is Jug Band Blues, a Syd Barrett song, 3 minutes long exactly. And this is a special one. I mean, it's one of the most haunting songs I've heard when I know the story of what happened, and it's like he's saying goodbye, and it's very eerie. And you know, the lyrics themselves, you know, it's awfully considerate of you to think of me here, and I'm most obliged to you for making it clear that I'm not here. Very eerie lyrics, and there's a even eerier music video that they made where like all the band are singing it, and he's just there strumming his guitar, just looking at it. It's just, oof. It really puts a spotlight on what happened with Syd, I think, and it's a bit uncomfortable, but there's something about it, you know, at the end when he's saying, just the lyrics at the end of the song, I think, are quite beautiful. I don't like the bit where he brought in like the Salvation Army and just told them to play whatever, and so there's this weird kind of trumpets and stuff, and that bit in the middle is just, but it kind of, again, it almost symbolises the madness that he had descended into, I think. So perhaps appropriate, but the ending with the slow guitar and him just singing these very angelically sung lyrics, and yeah, ends with on an eerie note. I've used the word eerie a lot, probably repeat myself a lot, but overall I do quite like the album. You know, Let There Be More Light is good. Remember a Day I really like. Set the Controls to the Heart of the Sun is a great one. Corporal Clegg has its fun moments, and I like the lyrics, I think, the best of the whole album actually. And Jug Band Blues is very good as well. Just a few weaker tracks. So overall, you know, I think it's a really good one, but it's not great, in my opinion. You know, and that's just my opinion. Again, they're my favorite band in the world, but I'm not going to say that everything they've done is amazing. And so yeah, it went to number 9 on the UK albums chart when it was released. And it was received kind of, you know, here and there, I guess. And it was the first Pink Floyd album that had a cover designed by Hypnosis, Storm Thorgerson, and was the second time ever that an EMI group were permitted to hire outside designers to make the album sleeve, the first being the Beatles. And this is when it was becoming more of a thing to kind of have a different kind of album cover, not just like the person plonked on the front, but something different. And I really do like the Saucerful of Secrets album cover. It's very cool. I like it a lot. I'd love to get the vinyl and have like a big, you know, version of it. That's one of the best things about vinyl, is just having the great cover art by Hypnosis there in like a big form, I think. Anything else I can mention really? Not really. I mean, it was a sad departure from Syd Barrett, but you know, the band were destined to go on to do bigger and better things. Well, depending on your tastes, I suppose. If you really love the Syd Barrett era, then maybe you wouldn't like the later Pink Floyd stuff. But yeah, that's it really. I feel like you know, Nick Mason said in a recent interview I saw on some documentary, I can't remember which one it was, he said that, you know, without Syd being there to start it off, they probably wouldn't have got to where they got, because really it was Syd Barrett who was driving the band in the beginning, in the early days, when they were signed to EMI, and when they did make the first album, and when they did start getting some popularity. And I think that he really pushed them in the right direction, and he was very much a part of it, you know. He wasn't just there to kickstart someone else's career. He had his own thing, and it was great while it lasted, but he just wasn't destined to carry it on for the long haul, unfortunately. Very tragic again. But there you go. That's my thoughts on A Saucerful of Secrets. And the next album we'll be talking about is 1969's More, which is kind of, it's basically a soundtrack album, and I'll get to that in the next video. But yeah, there we go. A Saucerful of Secrets. What would I rate this album? Let me think. It's a difficult one, because I don't know. I think I'm going to go ahead and give it maybe 3.5 wooden legs out of 5. Yeah, that seems like a fair rating to me, because there's some great things on there, but it's not quite the full. Again, you can really feel the absence of Syd, but also, again, that there's part of him still clinging onto it somewhere, and clinging onto them and their writing. But they would definitely continue to change very drastically over the next few years after Saucerful of Secrets. But there you go. That's my thoughts on Saucerful of Secrets. Thank you very much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. And as always, leave a comment down below. And thanks for, excuse me, I'll leave that in. Thanks for watching.